What's up, guys? This is Jeremy Wormy. I'm coming at you with a brand new video today, and today's Sunday, okay? All just putting it out there. If you've watched my videos, you've heard me say it a couple times. I record my videos the day prior, put them out the next day. So, like, I record Sunday for Monday, Monday for Tuesday, so on and so forth. That's just how my schedule is. Today, as I was doing some work, getting some errands done real quick, because I just don't do very much on Sundays, I was listening to the round table. Hail my buddies at the round table. Adam, Jed, Dragon Lady, Dre, Grump. Love you guys. But I heard Adam mention an article talking about canon. So I looked it up. Yeah, this exists. From CBR. From Star Wars to Marvel. It's time big franchises abandon canon. Recent developments with Star Wars and Marvel make the franchises better able to handle plot holes. However, there is a way to avoid them entirely. Sorry for hitting the mic. What? So just abandon canon entirely, because half this canon doesn't even matter. But if you abandon canon, what's the whole point of making these movies anymore? What's the whole point of these universes anymore? If you don't have a canon, if you don't have a through line, what's the point in even making them? What's the point in having Star Wars be this massive IP? What's that point? What's the point of Marvel continuing with an MCU if there's no canon? You can't do anything without a canon. You have to have a canon. You have to have a history. You have to have, hey, this happens here, this happens here. Granted, a lot of these franchises don't even have that anymore, but for crying out loud, what? Abandon any semblance of having a cohesive story? This article is insane. I'm not gonna lie. It is straight up insanity. The Star Wars fandom recently endured a minor shakeup with the premiere of Tales of the Jedi, specifically Episode 6, Resolve, wherein Ahsoka fought against a Sith Inquisitor for her friends who had betrayed her. Well, I know nothing about Tales of the Jedi, but I've been told it already breaks canon like a buttload of times, like preset canon by Disney Star Wars standards. Like, Disney Star Wars has basically no canon. The only canon that really matters is EU. Everything pre-Disney Star Wars is good. You can get last season of the Clone Wars in there, and you're good. You don't need anything else. EU, last season of Clone Wars, don't need to touch anything else. Everything else just constantly contradicts itself. However, fans of the series noted that this was essentially a recreation of a sequence from the Ahsoka novel, and a specific detail were kept intact that made it clear that this was supposed to be the same sequence, but the time frame and characters were completely different. Wow, just not like they've already not like Filoni's not used to retconning his own work and completely destroying his own canon. But geez, you took your own story and then ruined your own stuff. And fans pointed it out, like, hey, you're not even following your own canon. Again, Dave Filoni's used to that, but for crying out loud. In spite of the mental gymnastics fans are good at pulling off to justify such conflicts, no, fans aren't good. Fans don't do that. That's people that are not ready to say goodbye to something. And shills. Like, mental gymnastics aren't done by fans a lot of times. Mental gymnastics are done by people trying to shill for stuff. Say that it's strong and it's good and everything. And this whole article is just you saying, oh, don't have to do mental gymnastics anymore, just screw canon. The truth of the matter remains. Two versions of the same sequence exists in Star Wars canon. Yeah, not the first time, not the last time, but this is Disney Star Wars, not actual Star Wars. This is hardly new. Conflicts in Disney Star Wars canon go all the way back to one of the first Star Wars novels, splinter of the mind's eye. Well, I know nothing about that one, so okay. Through retcons and rewrites, the Marvel Cinematic Universe likewise has a few plot threads that happen to tie together in strangely conflicting ways. Well, yeah, because again, they don't care about their own canon. Disney doesn't care about canon, okay? Disney has their own bastardizations going on. Like, the MCU doesn't care about its canon. Disney Star Wars doesn't care about its canon, so using these to justify abandoning canon is pointless because canon was set by the comics, although Marvel comics now are a pit full of disaster caused by Disney. Same with Star Wars. The problem of canon is one that spans far longer than just over a century of movie making, and it's hard for fans to reconcile new. Hard for fans to reconcile new, apparently conflicting media with one another. Yeah, because you said X happened at this time, so why is X now happening prior to that with a whole different crew and people? That you're doing a history here. You're telling a story. It has to flow. This is storytelling 101. If you're doing a massive story universe, it has to flow, okay? X happens here, not here, but you constantly have X happening here, starting here, then also happening over here, but also yet it happens over here with the exact same parameters and same things, but who really cares? That's a thing that happens a lot from Disney, Star Wars, and modern storytelling. And now, I'm not justifying it, I'm just pointing it out. I'm saying that's a problem and you need to cut it out, but they're not going to. The solution to this I can't say it. Relatively, why was I saying relatively? Relatively simple, and has already been integrated into such franchises as Game of Thrones. Yeah. I mean, it's not Game of Thrones. Yep, season 6, 7, and 8. How did those do? Going off of canon and make your own BS up. How did all that do? House of the Dragon going off script, going slightly off the books, but at the same time steering relatively similar to the books. We want you to be as close to possible. You don't have to be perfect. There's some people that want you to be one for one. I'm saying be as close as possible because sometimes things just don't translate. I'm fine with that, but as close as possible. Yeah, Game of Thrones, what happened to that? How did 6, 7, and 8 go? No, I have a personal fondness of 6 because I do like the Battle of the Bastards, but that's me. Though there may be a true version of events. That's not to say this is what fans are presented with. Well, yeah, fans want the true version of events. Fans want the cohesive story. You don't give it to them. Essentially, the MCU, Star Wars, the DCU would profit less from trying to contain all their stories in a tightly controlled yet leaky canon. Rather, they would do well to take a postmodern approach, abandoning canon altogether. Yeah, what's the point in having a cohesive storyline and stuff? Just do whatever the heck you want anymore. Just do whatever you want. And there are examples of how this works is baffling because I also have examples of why it's perfect and also refuting their example. Abandoning canon would essentially allow fans to connect in their minds the different storylines and times of Star Wars and Marvel as they see fit. This is more postmodern approach to the franchises, as it is less concerned with telling a coherent story and more concerned with telling a series of individually good stories with no determined sequence. Guys, let's just tell random stories that don't actually connect with each other, can use similar characters, and it doesn't matter if in this story this guy dies and then in a story that's set a couple years into the future he's perfectly fine and living. That what's the point in doing that? What's the point in having cohesion and actual storytelling? What's the point in storytelling? What's the point? if you do this, then why call it Star Wars? Why call it the MCU? Why use any of these names? Oh, because you just want to do BS now. You just want to keep doing BS with no consequences, no fan backlash. But you still get them, and this is the stupidest idea ever because it makes no point to watching your shows anymore. Again, I go to, hey, if I'm going to do this now. Let's say I have this story about Stan. Stan goes from this point where he battles somebody, this point where he battles somebody and fails, and this point where he battles the person he failed against, wins, and becomes the hero. Okay? Simple storytelling. Hero's journey style. What's the point if then, like, the whole story of Stan is, hey, he becomes the hero, has to fail, has to lose friends, but what's the point? And then I forget where I was going. Basically, I was saying, what's the point in this story that people attach to, love and everything? Okay? What's the point in doing that? It's a very cohesive story. Even Star Wars, you know. New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, this, the whole thing. Well, we'll just take, instead of, you know, anything in Empire Strikes Back, we'll remake Empire Strikes Back and ignore everything else. Ignore that this person died. You know, Obi-Wan dies in A New Hope. Oh, he's back. Oh, it's fine. Oh, but now Luke dies in Empire, but in Return of the Jedi, Luke's back, but then Leia. What's the whole point? What's the point in connecting with any of these characters? If you want to do this huge universe, okay, this huge, massive, sprawling universe, what's the point in connecting to anybody? Because they're not going to be coherent. Captain America. Oh, he died in Avengers Endgame, but now he's back here in Avengers Infinity War. Wait, no, I said that wrong. He dies in Avengers 1, Avengers Assemble and all that. Oh, but he's here in Age of Ultron. No explanation. He's just there. What's the point? The cohesive storytelling, this timeline, this canon allows for people to connect to maybe a character. Agent Ross? No, not Agent Ross. The agent from Iron Man. The Marvel agent. He then comes back for Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Name's escaping me right now. It'll come back. But it was cool to watch his small storyline from Iron Man, Iron Man 2, Thor, No, he wasn't really in Captain America. But from those 3 movies into Avengers, where he dies, that whole timeline of his worked. He had a canon. He had a storyline. The point of canon is the storyline, so abandoning it makes no sense. Oh, he's dead here, then alive here. It's kind of my big problem with watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I didn't like it, because they said, oh, well, he just didn't die. Well, then what's the point of him dying? Series of individual good stories. Well, they don't even make good stories with no determined sequence. Well, they don't even make good stories, so what's the point? A strikingly good example for this can be found in Legends of Zelda. So, no. No, actually, no. And there's questions on how many timelines there are, but for the most part, there's 2 to 3 timelines. And I have a decent version of it from the Zelda timeline, from their own thing. Nintendo has their version. This came, I believe, from the Zelda handbook that is up to date. I could be a little wrong. It could be a little out of date. But yeah, Zelda has a timeline that once you get to Ocarina of Time, it splits into either 2 to 3 different versions. And then comes back together for Hyrule Warriors, Breath of the Wild, and then Tears of the Kingdom. Like, this is a thing that happens. Zelda has a timeline. Wherein some games are sequels and some games are dreams. Well, no, they're part of a different set of stories. They're part of a different timeline. They do have a canon. But they are cannot speak. Portrayedly, they are perpetually take place within the same basic timeline. They take place in the same basic timeline. Oh, they're all the same. They're in the same timeline. They're just different stories. Same basic timeline. It's just that there is no way of knowing when a game takes place within that timeline. Well, I mean, we come back here. So you start with Legend of Zelda. Get to the Minish. I'm probably saying this wrong. Four Swords, Ocarina of Time. Ocarina of Time, you have your where he fails, where he wins, and then the Child Era, which I think is the remake. So you get the Majora's Mask, the whole Twilight Princess, Swords again, and Hyrule Warriors over here in the Child Era. Adult Era, you have Wind Waker, Phantom Hourglass, Spirit Track, Cannot Read, Adventures of Link. Then you have over here in the Fallen Era, Link to the Past, Ancient Stone Tablet. I cannot remember this one, but I'm not a huge Zelda fan, but I know this, like Triforce Heroes. Then it comes down to the Timeline Unified with Hyrule Warriors, Breath of the Wild, and Tears of the Kingdom. Like they have a timeline. Takes place within the... I have another example, and people like to point this out as well. A better sort of example of this technically would have been Pokemon, but even Pokemon has a timeline. I brought this up. So Pokemon technically has a timeline too. This is me talking about canon. Now, within each Pokemon game, canon is they are their own pocket universes, but they happen within a timeline. So even though my version of Scarlet is a different pocket universe than your version of Scarlet, or my version of Violet is a different pocket universe than your version of Violet, they all still happen within their own timelines, and it becomes hard and a little messy, but just follow me here. So you have the creation of everything, certain history events from the past, lands, things of that nature. You get Arceus, then you have the Let's Go universe, Mega Universe, Ultra Universe, and the Original Universe. The Original Universe spans Red, Blue, Yellow, Leaf Green, Fire Red, Ruby, Emerald, Sapphire, Heart Gold, Soul Silver, all these things. Like, all these things are in the same universe, even the same timeline, just different tiny pocket universes. They're all happening. Another example. Massive universe, massive franchise, tons of different timelines, but your main universe, this is Gundam, okay? Your main Gundam timeline is your Universal Century timeline. Spans the OG series, goes into Unicorn, goes into Hathaway. This is still not fully up to date because it doesn't have Hathaway. Oh, wait, yeah, it does right here. Mobile Suit Gundam Hathaway. You have timelines. What is a timeline? A timeline is essentially your canon. Like, these events happen here. I have my complaints with the Universal Century timeline, mainly because of how the manga was wrote and then the animations were put out. That being said, it's very consistent. It's very straightforward. Hey, these events happen here, 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 here. Does the same for Future Century, After Colony, Cosmic Era. They end up going to different universes, but even in those universes, they have their own timeline. They have their own events, and they all go their own way. So canon is there for a specific reason. You have a canonical story. Maybe you break up into different timelines, but even those timelines have canonicity. So canon's important. Even your example is wrong. This postmodern approach has led to fan theories tying the stories together or making them in parallel timelines based upon only their own imagination, igniting greater ownership of the stories. Well, no. Again, this is probably not the version put out by Nintendo. I'm probably missing that one, but Nintendo put out the Zelda timeline. Pokemon Company said, hey, every game is a pocket universe, but this is your basic timeline. Gundam, hey, this is your timeline. They have timelines. They have canon. These events happened. Event happens here, impacts what happens here. Maybe it happens here. I go to a complaint I have in Gundam. Mainly new types. Getting off track, I know. In Gundam, you have new types. My biggest complaint for Hathaway is they don't acknowledge new types as being a thing, even though in Unicorn, which happened beforehand, new types were revealed to be real. That's why I have a complaint with Hathaway, and that's why I don't like Hathaway, besides the fact I hate Hathaway. Canon is used to fix that. Yeah, you have plot holes here or there, but you need to find a way to fix those plot holes. You need to have as little plot holes as possible. So even your example of canon of Zelda doesn't make sense. And sorry about that. Approach has led greater ownership. Star Wars, more than any others, exemplifies franchises that would benefit from taking a postmodern approach. Star Wars canon is essentially anything published after Disney's takeover of the company. No, that's Disney Star Wars. Disney Star Wars is fanfic. Actual canon is EU. As well as the movies and Star Wars, The Clone Wars, the DCEU approach to the world of its heroes and the multiverse in which they reside consists of several narratives that fans likewise piece together as they fit. Both Suicide Squad and the Suicide Squad presumably take place in a universe shared with Shazam, but not with the Batman or Joker, which likewise do not share a universe. Well, that's actually a point of criticism for the DCU. We want a cohesive story. We want everything to be in one era. We want canon. It doesn't make sense to have the DCU version of Batman or the EU version of Batman or whatever version of Batman while I just had the dude's name. It's escaping me, but the Batman universe is going on. The Joker movie can happen in its separate universe because, hey, we don't really want an origin story for the Joker. He's supposed to be a mystery. This is fine. This, though, does cause a problem. That's a point of criticism, not a point of praise. When you want to have a cohesive universe, you need to have a canon. If you don't have a canon, nothing makes sense, and what's the point in actually caring anymore? The Arrowverse has a series of different universes that cross over, but are not the same universe. Well, no, they have the similar universe. They happen in similar timelines. Yeah, they do different universes here or there, but they happen in the same universe. That's why it's called the Arrowverse. Batwoman happens within the Arrowverse. The Flash happens within the Arrowverse. The Arrowverse is a unified timeline. Even though they break their own canon and they might go into the future and cross different dimensions, they happen all in the same universe. It's called the Arrowverse. The MCU has the tightest canon of all of these. Possibly, but at the same time, it's very bad. And the tie-in graphic novels and comics, as well as TV series and, of course, the movies. Nonetheless, conflicts so much that mental gymnastics must be undertaken just to determine what is canon. The point of canon is storytelling. The point of canon allows you to tell the cohesive story. If you just get rid of canon, yeah, you can do, this is a Superman movie, this is a Batman movie, this is this. But the reason these universes exist is because you want that cohesive story. Okay? There's a difference between like Nolan trilogy and this and stuff like that. You could do that. You could have like the Superman trilogy and the Nolan trilogy, or Superman movies and the Nolan trilogy. That's fine, but then you don't have a cohesive universe with a plan or anything. What's the point in actually caring? If you want to have these massive sprawling universes like they do, like the MCU, the DCU, Star Wars, you need to have canon and you need to have a cohesive story. Your own example of Zelda, I got rid of. I then gave you maybe a better example, which was Pokemon, but even that isn't good. Gundam, which has multiple different timelines, still has a cohesive story and a canon. Universal Century is their main storyline and their main canon. All these are different universes. So you have to have a canon. Abandoning canon doesn't really matter. Granted, they don't, Star Wars, MCU, and DCU abandoned their canon all a long time ago. But that's actually a point of criticism from actual fans and not a point of praise. All that being said, let me get your guys' thoughts down in comments below. What are your thoughts about canon and the use of canon and storytelling? And if you like the video, give it a thumbs up, share it out with your friends, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell for every time I put out a new video and go live. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye for now.